You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, joined by Brad Allis. I'm Mike Luke, and we're going to get to Brad Allis in a second here. But a friendly reminder, Brad Allis has been to Mountain Mike's Pizza before. I am not Mountain Mike. On Oracle and Wetmore, check it out, Mountain Mike's Pizza. Head over to mountainmikespizza.com or to their Mesa, Chandler, or Tucson locations to place your next order. Reminder, new diehards get a $50 voucher upon signing up. I saw it in Sacramento. I've seen it in Tucson. I've seen it in Phoenix. Mountain Mike's Pizza. Now, let's talk with Brad Allis right here. Brad, how you doing, dude? Let's talk about your facial structure first.
Yeah, we're getting better. Let's see if I can turn to the right part of the camera. There we go. There's some scarring, but yeah, I actually got back in the batting cage with the kids. I was a little flinchy, I have to admit, but yeah, back on the saddle. I've played 5 hockey games since stitches came out. Only a little bit of a black eye, so we're doing good. So.
All right. Well, you're not a black eye on the podcast. We'll put it to you like that. Jared Gilbert says, Mike, you need a Del Taco sponsorship. I would love a Del Taco sponsorship because I would eat all their cheeseburgers. All right, Brad, since we've last talked to you, you had Carter Bryant is committed to the University of Arizona. We're going to talk a lot of roster. A bunch of names have hit the portal that people have been asking about. But first, while Kylan, Boswell, Jamari Phillips, awesome gets, Carter Bryant is the first uber elite recruit that Tommy Lloyd has gotten. And to me, this silences some of the naysayers about the Tommy Lloyd can't recruit domestically.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is the beginning of the end of the is there penalties, is there not penalties? This is really the first public big time recruitment, if I'm not mistaken, since Arizona was basically told no further penalties.
Right.
I think all the Mookie Cook stuff, all that happened before. So you're now in there's no fear of missing the tournament. Now you have to say where is Arizona stand in NIL money? Because that's a whole new thing. And I think Arizona obviously is figuring out how to be competitive. I think they have to figure out a way to tap some boosters who maybe haven't been tapped before. Robert Sarver just sold a basketball team for what, $6 billion or something like that.
Right.
So maybe he needs some goodwill. Maybe say, hey, Robert, let's make people forget about some of your shenanigans. So I think Arizona then from that regard, but I think from a purely getting guys to the league, style of play, quality of life as a basketball player, it's hard to beat Arizona. And now I think, we're proving that Tommy Lloyd with his casting crew, especially Murph, can land these guys. Now they need to land more. They may, again, we can still debate whether they need to tweak how they offer people, when they offer people. They may need to think about the non-committable offers just to show kids some of that.
Yes,
love.
We need more non-committable offers. I agree with you.
The original Gabe York offer.
Yes.
So, there's still some tweaks here and there, but I think I really never had huge doubts about his ability to be a salesman for the program. My ability was, handling everything that happens before, because it's not just as simple as getting on the phone, calling the kid's high school coach and offering them. And there's this whole world to navigate, and now it's made more complicated with NIL. So you've got family, you've got high school coach, AAU coach. Now you've probably got a business manager to deal with, other connections out there. A lot of these guys are affiliated with AAU teams, which are affiliated with NBA players, which you may or may not have a relationship with. Lute and Sean Miller were the masters of making relationships, having assistants who could make relationships, and, being able to haul in recruits. And, I think we're seeing Tommy Lloyd doing some of that, but it's it's even a different landscape from 5 years ago where pretty much Sean Miller could call the Oakland Soldiers and have a kid.
I want these kids right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
All right. Well, let's see here. Now I'm going to get some of these reads out of the way because Jacob Franklin has requested these right here. Even though he tells me not to bring this up on air, I will bring it up on air because it's fun. Tap and Bottle, Scott and Rebecca do great work right there. Brad knows Scott and Rebecca. I know Scott and Rebecca. Anybody that's been there at Tap and Bottle downtown or Tap and Bottle North, Great stuff going on. You can get 4 peaks there as well. Again, check it out. We're going to have the Tap and Bottle watch parties again once football hits, so we'd love to see you there, Tap and Bottle. Okay, now, Jacob Franklin, if you could pull up the Carter Bryant highlights that we have from last summer, I'd like to be able to break this, talk about this a little bit. Here's what you're getting essentially right here. You're getting a kid right here that you can just tell his fluidity with the ball. You look at him, he's every bit of 6'8". He's making guys miss. He's getting to his spots. He's crossing up. This is why, again, he is projected. He has such a high ranking. Now, I don't know that he's going to come in and average 18 and 8. I would be surprised if he did. But this stuff right here, Brad, is why you look at it and you project him as a 24-year-old and saying, man, he could be a real problem in the NBA.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Jason Tatum as a comparison, and I could definitely see that. He is long, he's athletic, but he's sturdy. He's bigger than the wings Arizona has had of late.
Right.
A little more reminiscent of some of the mid-era, successful era Sean Miller, and certainly what Lute Olson tried to get. Basically, the lineage of Sean Elliott and Richard Jefferson and
Andre
those guys,
Iguodala, Son Adams, Chris Mills.
Well, even more. I'm talking about the longer, taller. I mean, Adams and Mills were closer to 6'5". Iguodala was a legit 6'7", 6'8".
Right.
Sean Elliott was 6'8". Richard Jefferson was 6'7", 6'8". These are guys who have the height of a smaller power forward, but the game of a pure wing.
Right.
And
which gives you a lot of position flexibility, right?
Yeah,
there.
so if you have to go small, you can slide over and be a de facto 4. But he's also athletic enough, so if you really wanted to frustrate some people, throw him out there with another pure wing, like Arizona did. Again, neither were that big, but when Arizona could throw, Dickerson and Simon, and both guys were 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", that's a tough matchup for some teams. So that's what he gives you. He gives you a versatile game and this legit size. And again, look at his build. Those were highlights from last summer. He doesn't look like a 16, 17-year-old kid. He's pretty physically put together. Right. Get him in a strength program now or a modified strength program. And yeah, you have a guy who, again, he may not come in and set the world on fire, but can certainly contribute and won't be, that deficit physically that sometimes freshmen can be because they're super skinny.
All right. Speaking of which, we're going to get to Jaden Bradley, Zona Tucson. Great question right there. But also wanted to talk to you a little bit about Jamari Phillips. Saw him this past weekend. This guy is the kind of kid that Luke generally recruited right there and that he's about. And I was actually texting with AJ Bramlett about this the other day. But basically about 6'4", can really shoot the ball, can get to where he wants on the court. I think he's underrated nationally. He kind of looks like that McDonald's All-American type recruit. He reminds me a little bit, not entirely, but a little bit of Jawan McClellan pre-injury in there. William, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I see some of that. And I've only seen a few clips, whereas I got to see Jawan live because I was still on beating down that recruiting trail back then. But, he does remind me of some. Lute used to find these guys, and they always seem to be these 6'4" wing guys or 6'8" wing guys, but who he could kind of spot what they were going to be a year from then.
Yeah.
And then 3 years from then. Luke was very good, and his staff. Roz had an eye for detail, although Roz wasn't the sales guy. Roz was pretty good at analyzing tape and things like that. Certainly the rest of the staff.
Roz brought us Travis Wilson.
Well, we won't hold that against him either. I think Roz also brought us AJ Bramlett because I think there was a family connection. But what they were able to do is see a guy as a sophomore who wasn't yet there, but get in on him early. So if he did, again, that's why recruiting's so strange. In football, you basically recruit a guy the summer before his senior year. They're pretty much grown men by then. In basketball, you got to start these relations with a freshman and sophomore, and some guys are fully formed as freshmen. Nick Wise is a great example. Nick Wise grew like 1 inch in high school. He was 5'10" as an 8th grader, and he was 5'11" or 6 foot, and didn't change physically.
Nick Wise was never 5'10" or 5'11". Come on, Brad.
He was a grown man though at 13, basically.
Right.
Whereas other guys, you look at some of these guys when they're freshmen, and then you look at them even when they're juniors, and they look like completely different players because they mature differently. And then some guys don't mature until their sophomore years of college, and you have to be able to spot that. And that's what where you see a lot of these mid-major guys and low-major guys who blow up. as 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, because they grow at a normal rate, not this accelerated rate that elite basketball athletes do. And that was what Luke was good at. And it looks like this staff did that with Phillips as well. Spotted him when he was good. Now he's very good, and we can see a path to him being great.
All right, let's talk about Jaden Bradley here in a second, because essentially this is down to a couple schools right here. But first, look at Brad Allis. You can say Brad might be hurting a little bit. That's maybe where OGs comes in right there. Have your pen right there, Jacob Franklin. I see you writing that down. All right, OGs. They're so much more than gummies. They are truly about the culture of the community. So when you get smacked in the face, they're here to help you out. OGs, check it out. You can find them at your local dispensary at ogsbrands.com. Must be 21 years or up to and enjoy responsibly. Everybody knows someone that can use OGs. If you want to be cool and feel good, you want to sleep, you want to feel better, OGs is there for you. Check it out, OGs. All right, Jaden Bradley. Now, just to rehash right here, Jaden Bradley. He was a 5-star kid. Arizona lost out to Alabama on. He is now in the transfer portal. I would love to see Jaden Bradley here at the U of A. It sounds like it's going to be North Carolina State and Arizona, one of those two schools. Generally, there's probably a connection when you get one of those outside of the box ones. But yes, while Bradley
or NC State, who was NIL before NIL was legal.
That is a great point. They were really on the cutting edge. But here's what I like about Bradley. Bradley, I think, gives you a lot of different things. First of all, I think a lot of people look at it and they think, oh, he's a disappointment. He's a 5-star. And why isn't he in the NBA right now? Well, Brad, you know this better than anybody. Not all 5-stars are created equal. There's the Nick Johnson 5-star and there's the DeAndre Ayton 5-star. Both of those are drastically different. If you get Jaden Bradley in here, first of all, I think he would start next to Kylan Boswell. And I also think it gives you some flexibility if Kylan Boswell were to blow up and move on after this year, William.
Yeah, this is a little bit like what we said. I like what Fish is doing, and Fish is going after some of these 5-stars who were disappointments, i.e. couldn't break into the starting lineup as freshmen or sophomores. And when you're at Arizona, yes, you expect your 5-star football players, or 4-star because they don't get 5 stars, to play right away. But at Oregon and some of these schools you don't. So I like finding this weird combination of mid-major guys who are stars and want to just star on a bigger platform, and guys who didn't develop at the rate. And frankly, the way Alabama is able to pull in transfers and the way, Arkansas is able to pull in transfers right now, they're not going to be patient with some of these kids. So, and if you're confident in your player development, which I don't know, as much as we like the Must Bus, is he really seen as a guy who takes 3 years to develop a kid? I don't know, but that's
no. The Must Bus wants guys to come in. The Must Bus already wants leaders of men in that position.
Yeah, they want 24-year-old transfers, and they somehow have a roster of 34. But the point is, this is a guy I think Arizona can do well with. This type of player who has obviously raw athletic ability, basketball ability, and for whatever reason, it may be as simple as logjam ahead of him. We all know that first year of transferring to a college.
Hold on just a second. We got to combat this right here. Ricardo Nunez, he's not Chase Jeter. Chase Jeter, I always knew, was not very good. You got to remember this about Jaden Bradley. He averaged 6 and 3 on probably the most talented team in the country this past year, and he had a lot of upperclassmen in front of him. I can go on record and tell you he would be better than Chase Jeter. Brad, would you co-sign me?
And what? Jaden Bradley's what, 19?
Yeah, exactly.
Chase Jeter could go to the bars when he transferred. He was an older player. And again, Chase Jeter wasn't brought in to be a star. He was brought in to be a role player. And he did. He was just okay. But yeah, so I don't mind.
I get Ricardo's point, though. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And again, I don't want to bring in a 5-star guy who has failed for 4 years, but I'm perfectly willing to bring in a guy. Again, look at Umo Barallo. He redshirted a year, had 1 year, and then came to Arizona, and he's probably a preseason All-American next year, possibly. Third.
You know what this would remind me of a little bit? And again, I don't want to compare both of these guys. I'm just comparing the positions that they would kind of be in. It reminds me a little bit of, and again, they're not nearly the players, so again, I'm not saying that. Reminds me a little bit of Mike Bibby, reminds me a little bit of Avin JT here, in that you knew that Mike Bibby, and again, Kylan Boswell is not Mike Bibby, but you all hear the rumors. Kylan Boswell wants to get to the NBA as soon as possible. Not really breaking any news right there. Mike Bibby wanted to get to the NBA as soon as possible. Jason Terry, though, you always knew that whenever that happened, you were going to have a nice little safety valve right there. And I think Jaden Bradley could be that guy.
Yeah, and again, give you that 2-point guard or 2 combo guard backcourt that Tommy Lloyd really seems to want.
Right. And, again, and he's not Ryan Nembhard, but you know what? You lost out on Ryan Nembhard. You got to be able to find some of those guys. All right, now, the big thing that we want to help out, though, here, we want to help out our good friend Jacob Franklin, though, behind the scenes, who makes us sound much, much better than we actually should. Now, you might say to yourself, William Brad Allis, you got Rugrats running around the house playing baseball, doing a lot of different things. Let's say you wanted to take them out for a weekend. Octane Raceway and Mavericks up in Scottsdale right here. Now, here's what you got going on. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, $5 Mavericks margaritas, $5 off our taco trios featuring our delicious ABQ and short rib tacos, and $15 Mexican beer buckets. They got us great stuff going on for Memorial Day as well. Book some fun this spring at Octane Raceway and Mavericks. Kart racing, virtual reality, laser tag, axe throwing. Brad, have you ever done axe throwing, by the way?
No, but it's on the short list. Tyler wants to go throw some axes. So
bowling, arcade, great food and drinks, tons of different events throughout the summer. Check out octaneraceway.com and mavericks.com for all the stuff that you need to know. All right, now, had a lot of people ask about Grant Nelson, who has entered the transfer portal. Big man out of North Dakota. I'm just going to say this, I think, when it comes to transfer portal guys, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but I think this is kind of where the coaching staff is. I would be surprised at this stage. I think they're trying to get real difference makers on the perimeter because, and again, this is just me surmising, I believe that they think between Umar, Henry, and you're probably going to get multiple international kids here, that's going to be good enough to get them by, especially because they're younger. I would not expect Arizona to seriously pursue Grant Nelson.
No, I think if Arizona, and again, I and it sounds like they're probably out, even though I think they want him as a wing. Olivier sounds like he is probably on the.
Sounds like he's pretty much out, yeah.
Yeah, but what I think that if you are going to bring in a transfer big man, I think you want a role player.
Olivier would have been that guy.
Yeah, but I think they also looked at him as a wing, as kind of that combo forward. But what I think you need is, I think this is obviously, and I don't know who the Euros are. I know they're at least one of them is well regarded. But my guess is, yeah, you're planning on going to battle with Umar, Henry, and at least Euro number 3. So if you are going to bring in a big man, first of all, that's probably going to push Dylan Anderson out the door. But you're looking for a guy who's going to be happy with 15 minutes. So you're probably looking at a guy who is a smaller college guy. Well, frankly, you're looking for a Chase Jeter or a Mark Tollefson. That's what you're probably looking for if you're going to bring in a big guy, because you don't want a guy who wants minutes. Right. And I'm not.
We don't want players good enough that they expect to play. Is that what you're saying?
What you really want is you want a Matt Korchak, a guy who's happy to be there, who can, if needed, give you 10 minutes. And again, I'm still holding out hopes that Dylan Anderson has a path to playing time, maybe not next year, but in the future. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure he should be that patient. But yeah, so I don't know if
could you see him go into GCU with ASU great Duke Brennan?
That would be a really intriguing front line, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it really, a GCU Duke Brennan? You got the Duke and you've got Dylan Anderson.
That would be that for their level. That would be a pretty interesting group. But I don't know. Can those two guys play together? I guess the Duke can play with anybody. All
right. By the way, Betty Cohen says, "What about Trey White?" I would love to have Trey White. You might say, "Who is Trey White?" USC transfer, guy with NBA potential, ex-top 50 kid, averaged 9, 5, and 1 or 2 this past year. Sounds like Arizona's recruiting him. I don't have a ton of insight in that, but I would love Trey White, Brad Allis.
Yeah, Trey White's a guy, again, I think he fits that mold of really talented guy who didn't quite shine at his last school. Again, there were some guys ahead of him. They were as talented as USC was. There always seems to be a little bit of dysfunction around USC.
Right.
Nothing like Alabama dysfunction, don't get me wrong, but just I always think I hate to say this because I'm going to sound like a certain Twitter handle, but it seems like there's always promises made for playing time at USC that doesn't quite, when you're hiring guys' dads and cousins. And so, yeah, I would love Trey White. I have no insight on that, but Trey is that type of player. Again, a high major guy, 4 or 5-star guy who has the ability to justify that ranking, but maybe hasn't performed. And then I'd like to see them get, again, and I don't have names, probably one of these mid-major guys who put his name in the draft and then doesn't get the result, but he's really good.
Maybe and he's got an higher up. I want guys, too, with upside here. And what I mean by that is I like Courtney Ramey. We like Cedric Henderson a great deal. But you knew exactly what you were going to get with both of those guys. I will say that I thought Ced Henderson actually outperformed expectations.
He did.
To a certain extent. But Trey White is a guy that if he's here 2 years, you could see him. And by the way, this spam needs to stop. This field poster city person. Go away. We don't like you. But Trey White is a guy that you could see being, if he was here 2 years, having high-level all-conference potential. That's what you want.
Yeah, and like I said, I would bring in a Ramey type in a heartbeat right now because, again, you need to fill out this roster. Right. And with talented players, or I'd bring in a Kyer or a Henderson. But that can't be the linchpin of this transfer class.
Right.
So let's assume you're going to bring in 3 transfers and 2 Euros. Give me a Trey White, give me a Jaden Bradley, give me a whoever this year's Justin Kyer is, and then 2 Euros, and I'm fine. Because again, you don't need, I don't think you can bring in 3 alphas and then try to mix them with all your other alphas. I think
the thing with the international big men that's so interesting, and by the way, Jacob Franklin, you're about to be dismissed right here. Watch this. Illegal Pete's. Now, might say to yourself, how can I be cool? We got Aiden behind the scene, and we have Jacob Franklin in there. Aiden, by his age, I can tell probably hangs out at Illegal Pete's. Jacob Franklin, I'm sure, has been there before. You can see cool people like that there all the time, whether you're in Tempe or University, the real university. Again, Illegal Pete's, delicious ingredients and customizable options are the perfect way to treat your guests to a culinary adventure they'll never forget. To book your catering, head to catering.illegalpete's.com. Again, Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. Jacob, you're dismissed. I'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks again. Tell everybody I said hi. All right, now, Brad, looking at the international route is fascinating for me here because it feels like there's very it's such a, that's why I like the transfer portal more. It feels like there is such a, you could get an Azulis Tabellis that can come in and can be immediately 12-7. Or you could get Henry Vasar who comes in and, and again, I like Henry. I think Henry's going to be good, but he looks kind of overwhelmed right there. To me, it's much more of a scatter shot than it is the transfer portal where I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to get.
Well, I think the transfer portal is more easily to project. I still don't think it's easy to project, especially if you're bringing in, you're not necessarily bringing in lateral move guys in the transfer portal. Rarely. Right. You're not bringing in, let's say, you're not bringing in UCLA starting small forward to be Arizona starting small forward.
Right.
You're either bringing in Trey White, who is a role player off the bench for the most part for USC, to try to fill a bigger role at Arizona, or you're going mid-major and you're hoping 17.5 points a game at UMKC is the same as 12 points a game at Arizona, but it may only be 6 points a game at Arizona.
But what about like a school like Texas, where you had a Marcus Carr that averaged 17 at Minnesota? You had a Timmy Allen who was at Utah for 30 years. Those were easier guys to project.
Yeah, but how many of those guys? It just doesn't seem like Arizona's, with the exception of Nimhard, has been in the market for those guys.
True. That is true.
Because, again, yes, you got Courtney Ramey. And Ramey was basically the same guy at Arizona that he was at Texas. He had a few bigger games. But for the most part, you're trying to project, even by going to some of these smaller, like Justin Kyer, 9 points a game at Georgia was 6 points a game at Arizona because Georgia's not as good. Right. So I think that's the difficulty. Now, it's you have a better idea what you're getting than the Euros in general, but you just don't know. But that's also true of recruits after the top, 35, 40?
Right. True. That's true.
For the most part, again, you look at it, And, Derek Williams was what, 90th?
Right.
And was a stud the moment he walked on campus.
It's true.
Juwan McClellan was 40th and took a couple years and then had injuries and then had, his friend get murdered and all that. So again, there's no exact science unless you're bringing in 5-star top 15 kids. And then even then you don't know how they're going to mesh or anything like that. So yeah, there's a challenge whichever way you do it, unless you're getting apples to apples. And that is a starter or a role player at a comparable school who you're bringing in. Again, Nimhard to Arizona was going to be the same guy Nimhard was at
Creighton.
Creighton was the same he's going to be at Gonzaga.
Right.
But, let's say you go – we don't know what Jaden Bradley's going to be with more playing time and different coaching. We think he can be an upgrade to what he was before, but we just don't know. So it's if you can find those comparable guys, and again, we don't know what's coming back out. I really think this, although I think the staff has some guys they're targeting, I think they're waiting to see who pulls their name out of the NBA draft. And my guess is conversations have been had that as legally as you can with, so they know who's leaning one way or the other. And we might get some of those comparable guys. Well, I can't think of a guy necessarily off the top of my head, but we might get a starting small forward from an ACC type school who decides, I don't want to go back there. I'd rather go to Arizona and good weather and Tommy Lloyd. So again, I think there's a lot to play out because we have to wait for the end of the European pro season. We have to wait to see who pulls their name out. But again, if you tell me tomorrow Arizona's going to add Trey White and Jaden Bradley, that's a really nice start.
What I would like, all right, now something we also got to talk about, somebody doing things the right way. Arizona football and Jed Fish. Jordan Paopao has been at South Point practices left and right. This is what you need to do. Now, first of all, we need to rehash Bijan Robinson, South Point. He didn't really give Arizona the time of day under Kevin Sumlin, nor should he, because he's a smart guy. But Bijan is, Brad, I'll just put it, is Bijan Robinson going to be the best football player to ever come out of Tucson?
At least since Mike Dawson, and that's going back a way. That's unfortunately, Mike passed away a few years ago.
Right.
But that was a guy in the 70s who was an all-pro. But yeah, in the modern era, he's going to be the best guy to come out of Tucson.
And what's remarkable about him, too, is that you just see it and just how well-focused he is and everything. Now, I will say the reason I bring that up, though, is I was talking with the father of another South Point player who also is playing high-level college football. You might be able to figure out who it is, and he's actually playing. And I asked him about Jed Fish. And he said, it would have been interesting. He said, because, with Jed Fish, he said, Jed Fish certainly recruits. Jed Fish certainly works hard, and you can put by this stage, I think it's fair to say that you're probably going to be able to put a good product on the field. Whereas with Kevin Sumlin, that really wasn't an option. I think going forward, though, it's going to be fascinating to see how Jed Fish does with the South Point kids, because you got two guys right now in Elijah Rushing, who's a 5-star that can go pretty much anywhere he wants, and you got a Keona Wilhite that is going to end up being able to go about anywhere he wants as well. Both guys on the defensive line. This is going to be a real test sample here for Jed Fish to see just how far Arizona has broken through with the school that basically was not sending their kids to there, except for a few exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, basically, for a while, Arizona did great there, especially under Stoops. And Stoops was, with the exception of
Chris O'Dowd.
O'Dowd, no, and the real reason O'Dowd did not come to Arizona, for one thing, dental school.
Right.
USC had a dental school. It almost, and the chance to start for obviously USC, but it was that close. But remember, they landed almost every other guy and the only other exception was John Romero, who went to Nevada.
Right.
And that didn't hurt them that much.
Correct.
But, they were able to get those guys. And then Rich Rod did well early on. Cam Denson, even though
Cam was a big time recruit. Cam was a big commitment.
Although talking to local high school football coaches, a lot of them didn't love him. I'll just say that. But yeah, then Rich Rod just kind of quit showing up there. Ironically enough, because there was a disconnect with the staff. New staff there, but someone didn't even bother.
Right.
Someone was like, oh, we can't get these guys, so why bother? Or who knows what was going through someone's mind, because they didn't recruit him. They didn't recruit.
The biggest problem I can encapsulate the biggest problem for you right here is that you've got a guy like Fina's kid. Now again, maybe Fina's kid was always leaving, but you can't let UCLA and USC offer John Fina's kid before you offer.
Well, here's the other thing. I know certain people on staff did not love Fina's kid, to be honest.
Well, no, that's fine. Totally get it. Maybe he's not good, but it
you know
doesn't
what?
matter.
You got to recruit him.
Yes.
Higher than you did.
Yes.
Even if, again, that's like, even if he's your 25th scholarship, why close the door? Why burn that bridge? So again,
especially when you're recruiting OKGs. I mean,
and this is my other question. If you're I don't understand why schools don't, like, especially if you're Arizona, you should literally just pick up the phone book and call every 5-star recruit and offer them.
Right.
Because what does it hurt? They're not, even if they don't come on the visit, at least you don't want to find out 3 years from now what they had offered earlier. I might have considered them.
And South Point is 5 minutes from campus. That's the other thing. It's not like I'm asking you to go out to Apache Junction each day.
But you know what? If I'm Arizona, and you go to every school and you look, because guess who you might find? Jordan Morgan.
Blake Martinez.
Blake Martinez, who, again, I was wrong on Blake Martinez. I'll be the first to admit it.
My whole thing is I agree I was wrong as well, but still, if Stanford at that point is offering him, I'm looking at him saying, all right, we're going to offer 2.
And again, I know that whole story. A lot of it was position. They thought he was a tight end. They didn't like him a tight end. Whatever. They made a mistake, but you still recruit him.
ASU can't be Kadeem Carey's first offer.
No, and you know what? Even if you take some guys, and maybe they don't. You take some guys at the bottom of the class because they're local. And I know, and I'm not a huge. You have to get every local guy. Remember when they let the Pima guy go? And I was like, those guys weren't good. But you know what? Look at the guys from Tucson that Arizona has brought in who maybe weren't great on paper.
Right.
Brooks Reed was that guy. He was the second player. They wanted the running back, not
Lyndon Bolaski.
Who, again, maybe if he doesn't have injuries. Jake Fisher, undersized. What did he start 3 years at Arizona?
Mike Skurlock.
Well, good old Mike Skurlock from Cholla High School. So yeah, I think you need to scour the local schools, and even if you're just sending a grad assistant, I don't know what the rules are, but you don't have to send your top guy to anywhere but maybe South Point CDO and
it's South Point and CDO. This isn't like when William and I were growing up, where you had to go to Saguaro and you had to go to Sabino and you had to go to all these different schools. Go ahead.
But if you're Jed Fish, you better at least go to one of those games once, just in case.
For sure, just in case, but almost all these kids matriculate to one of those 2 schools at this point. So, it just kind of is what it is. Now, you brought up Jordan Morgan. Jed Fish is getting a little bit of heat on Twitter where he said never again about nobody getting drafted. I will say this, though. I think in the next 2 years, you're going to start seeing some guys get drafted. Jordan Morgan's getting picked next year. Jacob Cowling's most likely getting picked next year. McLaughlin's got a chance of getting picked. Then the following year, Savanea and T-Mac are definitely getting picked. I think you're going to start seeing this change a little bit here, William.
What would the internet have done if Jed Fish said, not next year, but after that, never again?
Can you imagine?
You know what it was like? And again, you can speak the truth, and it's worse than telling a lie. Remember when Mike Stoops did not say ASU and Arizona was the best rivalry in football, and he said it was Texas OU?
Right.
Guess what? Texas and OU is a better rivalry. I'm sorry, guys.
Just is.
It just is. And he was like, what? I talked to him. I ran into a basketball game. He's like, what'd I say? Same thing when he made fun of ASU's academics because they could get JC guys Arizona couldn't.
And they could get or was it Jarrell Barber, or who was it that they got in?
It was T Sizzle.
No, but there was another guy.
Another one, yeah. But the whole point is, sometimes you don't tell the truth. Like I was just watching NFL Network before I came on. They had Sarkisian on, asking about Bryce Young's height. Do you have any concerns? Steve Sarkisian is like, I go, you know what? He's a little short. Don't know. Just don't know if it translates. He's not going to say that.
You mentioned Steve Sarkisian, by the way. I got to ask, how does this guy keep getting elite level jobs? He stinks.
I don't know.
He wasn't good at Washington. He wasn't good at SC, and he hasn't been good at Texas. Why does he keep getting jobs?
I don't know, because people were convinced he's good. Because he's a good coordinator. I don't know. Who was it? Bill Fitch or whatever in the NBA guy coached.
Gene Shue.
Gene Shue.
Fair enough.
It's a retread. Okay, who's the Vegas coach for football?
McDaniels, another clown.
How's that guy get the job? But the guy who took the Raiders to the playoffs after all that turmoil is someone's special teams coordinator.
Right. No, I agree.
Like, there's a weird retread hire thing. But then again, look at what happens when schools go outside the box. Sometimes they get grilled until it works. So I don't know. But yeah, Sarkisian, whatever.
Doesn't do a ton for you. All right. Now, William, before we sign off, where can they find you?
WSR Brad should have some podcasts going up into the week. You can find me, every Tuesday here, and then whenever else Mike calls. So, but yeah, those are the best place to find me until, whatever, Twitter.
Any podcasts?
I'm hoping to have 2 by the end of the week. I got some scripts done. I've got some intros recorded. It's just a matter of getting them all edited together. And, when you're coaching baseball 4 nights a week, volleyball 3 nights a week, playing hockey 2 nights a week, and still trying to work 40 hours, it's a little tough sometimes.
He's good. Great. William Brad Allis. I'm Mike Luke. We'll be back with you tomorrow. As always, appreciate all of your comments. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.